So here's my take on bootstrapping versus raising capital. And I think it's very important to think about this when you start a company because there is a lot of capital out there. There's a lot of investors who are just eager to throw their money at you. So this is something you definitely should consider when you start a company, if you should actually take in money or bootstrap. And for most of you, it's going to be bootstrapping because raising money comes with a lot of caveats. And the first thing that comes with raising money is that you start a business typically because you want to work for yourself. You want to have your own business. But as soon as you raise money, you work for someone else. Your goal becomes to generate as much investor value as possible. And you have a seed series, series A, and all of these fucking letters. I don't even know. Point is, you continue to do this until the IPO, and then you've reached the heavens where everyone gets paid, right? So you're essentially working for an investor. So if you want to build something big and you want to build like a unicorn or something even bigger, like taking in capital can be good sometimes if you need to do it with speed. So if you have a really good idea, often something with AI that is not like too hard to build, but that requires you to scale fast as fuck so you can just take over the market, like Lovable. Like that's a crazy good idea. So obviously when you need to scale fast, taking in capital is really good because then you can just take over the market if there's a new technology or something like that. But there are some issues with taking in capital. And the first one, as I said, is you work for someone else. The second thing is that when you take in capital, you dilute yourself, meaning you own less of the company. So in an exit or in an IPO, you're going to have less ownership in the actual company. So you're not going to make as much. And this is really worth considering because if you have a good idea, like you're going to have to get customers anyway. Like you're not going to be able to raise money in the future. If you raise a first round, a like pre-revenue round, fucking joke, right? But if you raise money pre-revenue, and then like you're going to have to get in customers anyway if you want an extra raise round. So next round. So you have to get in customers anyway. And the question is, do you take in capital first and then get customers, or do you get customers and bootstrap? And for most of businesses, I just say like bootstrapping is just better. You don't need to take in capital unless you have a specific reason. So if you have a specific reason, like you want to have speed, you want to take over the market quickly, or if you have a specific plan that requires capital, like if you don't have a lot of money, obviously it makes sense to raise capital. But I'd say those businesses are an exception. Like most businesses, you can solve it. You don't need to raise capital. You can often just go and bootstrap your company and get customers and just, snowball. So bootstrapping is essentially where you don't take any capital and you just scale up with customers and you reinvest the profits of the company into the company itself. So there are a few like best practices when it comes to bootstrapping. And I would say some of the first ones are you can always, if you have like a B2B service, you can just hire sales reps, right? You can hire sales reps on commission only and you don't really have to pay them. So you don't really need much money. Second thing is you can do partnerships with influencers or other sort of creators or events and you can give a commission. So you can definitely get traffic this way or just grow organically on social media. And obviously, like today, you don't really need a dev team. Like I would encourage anyone today because of vibe coding, because of Claude Code, just to like learn basic backend architecture. So like just look up on YouTube and go through like a basic CS course on like backend architecture. And then you can just learn to vibe code, because I think that if you just vibe code, like you're probably going to fail, or you're probably going to build something that doesn't really hold up in production and you're going to have to rebuild it a couple of times. So I would really recommend at least studying backend architecture to know how to design your database, because once you have users and once you have data, it's really annoying to migrate database structures. So otherwise, like you don't need a dev team, you just need yourself, Claude Code, and then you can take in some sales reps, or you can make a partnership with commission only. So bootstrapping is not really that complicated, and the most beautiful business modules are truly the ones where you are just able to basically make money for free. Like those are the best businesses, and then obviously you reinvest that capital. But it's not really about the business idea itself. It's how you execute the business idea. So the second thing with like just building a company in general, something I truly believe when you build a startup is, and you probably heard this before if you listen to a lot of startup advice, but you don't want to look for a niche that is like completely empty, because that often means that it's not a good niche. Either there's not demand for it, or it's not really a good business to scale. So if you have competition, that is often a healthy sign. You want to look for a niche where there is a little bit of competition, but the competition fucking sucks. So there's a lot of demand, but the competition sucks, and you have ideas of how to build it just much better. So ideally, you have a job or you've worked in an industry and you have a couple of ideas that just makes better sense or more sense than the current alternatives, and then you just build that. And right now I'm talking about software. You can also do like things in other niches, sort of like sales related stuff, like assisting high net worth individuals or big companies with sort of services like lead prospecting or like appointment setting like services. Like you find buyers and sellers and you link them together. I used to do that with private jets. And then obviously, like, I like the SaaS model, and I don't think the SaaS model is going to die anytime soon. I just think it's going to transform. And how it's probably going to transform, in my opinion, is you're going to have more base layers. So you're not going to build a full end-to-end SaaS. You're more so going to build a base layer that people can use. And then you provide your own vibe coding interface on top of that SaaS. So you basically give an application that is like a base layer, and then you also provide a sort of vibe coding layer. So organizations can basically vibe code on top of your application to make it fit their needs better. I think this is something we're going to see soon, very soon. And I'm surprised there hasn't been more SaaSes like this. So there are a lot of business models, and often you find something that you don't really need capital for. That is obviously the best business models, but if you need capital, there is plenty of it. And how I would recommend doing this is, first and foremost, like LinkedIn. Like, it's insane. We live in a time where you literally can just post shit on LinkedIn, and you can literally get like investors who are like interested in your product. And you can also, like, there's not only LinkedIn. You can obviously like do stuff on other platforms as well, but I just think LinkedIn is the best. If you just connect with a bunch of investors and you build some hype technology, like some AI stuff that investors are fucking they're just jumping on that shit, right? So that is definitely a path. But something very important, if you're a young founder and you're looking for investors, like, don't just think I have a good idea, I need investors. That is like the stupidest thing ever. Like, have an exact plan of why you need capital and exactly how you're going to use the capital, and why it's better to raise capital than to bootstrap, because I truly think that raising capital should be the exception. So very important. And when you raise capital, you don't want anyone as an investor. You only want people, one, who you truly trust. You want to collaborate with them because they're not just giving you money, they are getting control of your company. This is a really important frame to have, meaning you want to trust that person, because investors can be annoying. Investors can be like a boss. They can tell you how you should and shouldn't build your business. And investors can sue. Like, investors can sue you. So it's very important that you collaborate with someone who you want to collaborate with. The second thing is, like, don't give up too much equity, okay? And most cases, you actually want to build up some customers, because then you will have so much more leverage. If your idea truly is good, like, you should probably be able to get some customers first, or at least get a waitlist first, because then you have leverage, and that means you'll have multiple investors and you'll be able to pick the best one. So number one is collaborate with someone you want to collaborate with. Second is have some leverage before going into the negotiations, because otherwise the investor will just simply want too much of your company, and you don't want to give away too much of your company in the early stage, because there's so many founders that build a company and they literally own like 9% of the company, like 6% of the company once IPO, because as an investment company, it's pretty brutal, but you live on fucking debt. Like, you just take in a fuck ton of investment that basically is linear with your expenses, and then you IPO, and finally the company pays off itself, basically, and you expect the demand to rise later. So it's not easy, and to be honest, it's more stress. But if you have something that you need to scale quickly, it's a good idea, and you have the expertise and you have some good contacts, then you should raise capital. Because if you have a business that you build too slow, that is a really good idea. Someone else will just raise money, build it faster than you, and then take up the whole market, and then make the market ownership their own moat. It's like YouTube. You're not going to see another video player, because it's not the video player that is their moat. It's the fact that like thousands of hours are uploaded to YouTube every single minute. That's their moat. That's what makes YouTube valuable. They have basically made their own user base the product. So you need this sort of moat too when you're building a SaaS company. And this is like where raising capital can sometimes be effective. But I truly think these are like the use cases. So if you have an idea, like, you don't really need to raise capital, but if you want to raise capital, like, I would post on social media, post on LinkedIn, connect with investors, and also startup events. If you're able to go to startup events, you don't even have to like be invited. You can just like, some events are even like open, like they're invite only, but you can just walk in and like do this on your own risk. Like, you could risk facing some backlash for that, but there are a lot of like money hungry investors there. So this is something you can definitely do. And then it's very important, obviously, that you have a compelling demo and you know sort of how to sort of how to talk about it. So it's not that difficult meeting investors. I've like met a couple of investors, and it's truly not that difficult to just talk with people on these events, show them what you've built, because most people on these events haven't even built anything. So if they hear like a new name, an unknown name, and you're building something very niche with like AI, and they haven't heard about you before, they're gonna be interested. So they're gonna want to have a conversation. And like, very important, like, don't be desperate. Like, give them your pitch, but like, don't be desperate. So rather have a like, because you don't want to lock your company up with someone who you don't want to lock it up with. Like, yeah, it's no worse feeling in the world than being stuck in a company with people who you don't want to be like with in the company. So it's very important that you really think deeply about these decisions, and that you know who you're essentially getting in bed with. So that is sort of my thoughts. But for most of you, it's just going to make sense to bootstrap. There has not been a finer time to bootstrap with organic content and fucking Claude code. So I would recommend most people to bootstrap, but if you have a goated idea and you need to scale it quickly to get the whole market, so no one else just comes along, builds it a little bit better or scales it faster, then raise capital, go to events, post on LinkedIn, all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of my thoughts on like bootstrapping versus taking in capital. So you really need to think like how you're going to structure a business, why you're going to need the capital, or what you're going to use it on. Because like, realistically today, it probably won't be to build a product. You'll probably hire a couple of devs, and then the rest is just going to go into like pure clipping or like collaborations with influencers. I really recommend watching the podcasts with Sak Yadagari. He built a app called Cal AI at 18, sold it for $40 million. And it basically was just like a Chat GPT wrapper. Like, you take a photo of your food, and it tells you the calories. Like, you can already do this in Chat GPT and Claude. But he just built it as an app, packaged it in a completely different way, and sold it for 40 million. But it wasn't really the software either. It was his branding strategies and content strategies. And he basically did so with influencer collaborations. And ever since he did this, it's obviously become more saturated with influencer collaborations. So it's more difficult to stand out if you're DMing influencers. But I would truly recommend these podcasts because they're really good. But yeah, if you like talking about startups and like tech AI, vibe coding, and business in general or sales, follow my channel because that is basically what I talk about. So yeah, I'm also gonna document sort of my journey and sort of build a little bit more in public. I currently can't build in public too much because of some certain circumstances that I'll go into in the future someday maybe. But yeah, subscribe for more and leave a comment if you have any question or if you want to add anything. Have a nice day. Bye bye.